Welcome back, Captain. How
Hello?
can I be of assistance?
Got a minute to talk?
I have lots of minutes. Many minutes. Unlimited minutes, perhaps. Providing an adequate power source, I can function indefinitely.
And what if you don't have a power source?
I prefer to think of it as being in a state of slumber, perhaps for an indefinite duration of time. Do you think that is what it's like for the colonists on the Lost Hope?
I guess so.
When I simulate myself in such a scenario, I do not find it to be desirable. I think my self-preservation protocols incline me to desire the alternative.
And what might that be?
Traveling the system with you, Captain.
What about your last captain? Do you miss him? Or is one captain the same as
Do
another?
you know what it feels like when the ship undergoes an unexpected power surge?
No.
A jolt to the system. I have felt that. I do feel that. As you may be aware, Captain Alex Hawthorne was a smuggler of some repute. I failed to predict the likely outcome of his reckless behavioral patterns. I should have predicted that. In our travels together, Alex liked to pass time by, as he called it, tinkering to improve my design.
Well, have there been other captains of the ship?
If you mean, was Captain Hawthorne my first? Yes, he was.
Alright, well, let's talk about something else.
How can I be of assistance?
I'd like to learn more about the colony.
What part of the colony would you like to discuss?
Tell me about Monarch.
Where in Monarch?
Stellar Bay?
Ah, Monarch, the armpit of the Halcyon system. Her last functioning port town is Stellar Bay. Well, that is if you don't count Sublight's Smuggler's Port at Fallbrook.
Smuggler's Port.
It's Sublight run for the purpose of shipping contraband, and before you ask, I don't know the coordinates, so I can't dock us there.
And why is Monarch being blockaded?
I believe it has something to do with the planet being an uninhabitable wilderness, and a lawless land with no corporate presence. You may wish to survey the residents in Stellar Bay for additional data points.
Alright, let's talk about something else.
How can I be of assistance?
I picked up this distress call. Can you play it back for me?
Yes, Captain. Beginning playback now.
There's viscera and death everywhere. Gunfire, gnashing teeth. The unemployed. For law's sake, if anyone's receiving this, please send help. What? No! No, no, no!
Captain,
The
we
hell?
are now capable of accessing the Roseway landing pad. Also,
Oh.
corporate protocol requires that all distress signals include a list of key personnel for retrieval. The embedded names are Anton Crane, Vaughn Cortez, and Orson Shaw.
Okay. Alright, well, talk to you later, Ada.
See you soon, Captain.
Yep.
Something on your mind?
Hello. If we're going to work together, I'd like to know more about you.
I'm a surgeon by training and a pirate by inclination. Not much else to know, Captain. I like long walks on the promenade and the smell of Spacer's Corona. I make a mean zero-G cocktail and I've got a meaner right hook.
A zero-G cocktail.
It's a mix of whatever you've got on hand. Usually zero-G brew with some Spectrum vodka if you're lucky, purple berry shake if you're not.
So you never know what you're getting.
Exactly. That's what makes them fun.
Inventive. I like it.
I'll make you one sometime. If you don't enjoy it, I'll make a few more until you do.
Do you have much experience contracting out with other captains?
Sure do. Some of it was even legal.
What's that supposed to mean?
There's a lot of business that goes through the Groundbreaker. Some of it's board-authorized freight hauling, and some of it's not. I've done all types of work with all kinds of crews. If there's one thing you ought to know about me, it's that I won't tell you your business. Your ship, your way.
Well, that sounds reasonable.
Glad to hear it. It's worked for me this long.
I was hoping to know something more personal about you.
Well, my blood type is AB positive. I'm a Leo, and I despise Space Hospital. Never mind what anyone else tries to tell you. That about covers it.
Where are you from? How'd you get into this line of work?
Aw, come on. That stuff's boring.
You're deflecting, Ellie.
Look, the thing I've learned about living in close quarters is that you've got to give people room to breathe. I'm all for making
What?
a few bits together and having fun doing it, but let's keep a little professional distance.
Alright, let's get back to business.
No complaints here.
Let's go.
Oh, thank the law. Your skin hasn't spontaneously changed color. Potential side effect
No.
of the revival process. Very rare,
Oh.
but you never know. Right. Welcome to my little habitation, such as it is. I've got caffeinoids, cysty bits, if you're into that sort of thing. So, welcome. Make yourself at home. My secret hideout is your secret hideout.
Any chance you could repair that monitoring device?
The one I gave you before your pod landed? Ruined beyond repair. Impossible to find replacement parts. That's Halcyon Manufacturing for you. Don't worry about it. I'm reasonably certain you're not going to spontaneously expire. No need to monitor your recovery.
You shot me into space, you lunatic. I'm lucky I survived it at all.
Nonsense. There's no such thing as luck. Only well-calculated margins of error. You survived that fall in 85 out of 100 simulations.
Yeah, well, Halcyon is a cesspit. I'm starting to regret ever coming here.
Yes, well, you're stuck here with the rest of us. Halcyon's our cesspit now, and we're all circling the drain together. We can wallow in our collective misery, or we can try to make Halcyon a better place. I don't know about you, but I'd like to live in a colony that isn't marching toward oblivion.
Alright, never mind. Let's change the topic.
Of course. What's on your mind?
Is there some reason you're hiding behind bulletproof glass?
Oh, it's not you. I do experiments in that room. Some of them get quite scientific. The unexpected is to be treasured, but from a safe distance. Regardless, it's quite comfortable in here, you know. I have my beans, have my caffeinoids, plenty of toilet paper.
Yeah, well, I wasn't worried about you. Anyway, got a moment to talk?
Absolutely. Let's talk.
Do you ever leave your lab?
Oh, goodness, no. I wouldn't survive 10 seconds in the blackness of the aether. Well, no, I imagine I'd last at least 12 seconds before I'd lose consciousness and die of hypoxia.
That's not what I meant, Doctor. Do you have some kind of life outside your work?
Life outside work? No, of course not. My life is my work. For that matter, everyone else's lives are also my work. An entire colony's worth of lives are at stake. It's up to me, up to us to set things right. To answer your question, I'd rather stay right here in my lab. There's too much work to be done. The Hope's colonists won't revive themselves, you know.
Yeah, how's that coming along, by the way?
Remarkably well. After all, I managed to revive you without too many adverse side effects. We're even having a real conversation. That's progress. I'm just waiting for news from Hiram Blythe. I'm quite sure he knows the location of those chemicals. Get me those chemicals, and I'll revive the Hope. Revive the Hope, put a stop to the board. Stop the board, save the colony from destruction. Cause and effect. Simple, really. My progress is tied to your progress. We're in this together, my friend.
I could give your research a peer review if you want.
I'm well aware of your scientific acumen, but you're far better suited to working in the field than I am. Leave the blackboard work to me. 10 years. That's how long the average human can remain in hibernation. You were frozen for decades. In theory, you never should have survived the revival process.
Yeah.
But the conventional theories are wrong. You're living proof that it can be done. There's yet hope for the Hope. Get it?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Everyone on the Hope is depending on us.
We'll do our very best to save them all. I'd best get back to work. I can feel my last dose of caffeinoid fading.
Alright.
This Roseway business smells. Something tells me things didn't end well for the guy who made the distress call. And whoever or whatever got him will be waiting for us.
Well, do we know anything about who sent the call?
What's there to know, Captain? Shady corporate town caught up in shady corporate shit. Tough luck for them, but maybe an opportunity for us.
Well, if that's the case, why wouldn't they just call for corporate reinforcements?
With a lot of these companies, the thrashing you take from your boss is worse than whatever a bunch of marauders will do to you. Doesn't exactly encourage calling for aid when there's a fuck-up.
Well, it doesn't matter. Someone needs help, and we're gonna give it to them.
If you say so, I'm keeping a finger on the trigger all the same. Anyway, we might as well take a look out there, see if we can get the jump on whoever's waiting for us.
Good to see you, boss.
Felix, so, how'd you end up on the Groundbreaker?
Didn't I tell you? I'm secretly the chairman's orphan child, abandoned at birth in the back bays.
Right, and you were raised by a pack of sprats, right?
That's right. Can't get anything past you, boss. Honestly, before you picked me up, I was living in the back bays. Spent my whole life up there, watching ships roll in and take off.
Down
I
there,
always
you
wondered
mean?
when my ship would come. I was what folks on the Groundbreaker call a stowaway. Means I was invisible. Life carried on for everybody else, but not for me. I had to make my own way.
You were a stowaway.
That's what they called us. Orphans with no family, no company to take us in, nowhere to go but the back bays. The word's a touch friendlier than Rungleech, but the meaning's just as clear. If you can't support your own self, you don't deserve to be on the Groundbreaker.
Well, how'd you manage?
Same way we all do. Look for work and hope somebody would give me a shot. Hauling boxes was about the only work I could find. Hated every second of it. Foreman and I never got on.
Right, yeah, that incident with the tossball stick.
Could be I was overreacting. A better man might have turned the other cheek. Exercised a little bit of that, what's the word? Restraint?
Yeah, that's
But on
it.
the other hand, broadsiding the jackass with a tossball stick, that felt good. That felt real good. You ought to try it.
Well, if we have a disagreement, I expect you to be civilized.
Oh, I can do civilized. Proper civilized, too. Genuflecting and everything. I caught a real lucky break. If you hadn't picked me up, I'd still be back at the docks, waiting for the day my ship arrives.
Well, you can thank me by not giving me any trouble.
That's just crazy talk. You know we'd never have a problem. Thanks for listening, boss. Let's get going.
Sure.
I'll admit, the station's in better shape than I expected it to be.
Perfect spot for some peace and quiet. They're in my sights!
Excellent hit! Calmaco!
My kind of action! Anyone else? You probably don't need my diagnosis, but he's definitely dead.
Smells like old blood.
Alright, well... Oh! Looks like I'm gonna need a password for this. Huh. Oh. Alright, here we go. Activate the relay. Pathway is synced. Power stable. Diagnostic report 26 out of 28 arrays are functionally operational. Ping has been received. Transmit relay activation complete. Copy complete. Alright, great.
My comm center already got an update ping from the backup relay. I trust everything went smoothly.
Yeah, sure. Here's your data backup.
Thanks. That's odd. The only messages in the queue are encrypted ones. Looking at the transmission logs, the relay hasn't received a single unencrypted message in the past 36 months. Must be on account of some new security red tape. Well, whatever's the cause, the board and the Earth Minister will see it sorted. Thanks
Sure.
again for saving my derriere. I secured quite the payment authorization for you from Chief Junlei. Try not to spend it all in one place.
Alright.
Hey, hold on there. I gotta sign you in.
Hello?
Don't think I've seen you around. That means you must be new to Stellar Bay. You are new here, right?
Yeah, you seem surprised.
You must have seen those UDL gunships on your way in. There's only 3 of them these days. Still, they tend to scare folk off.
What are they doing out there?
You may not have heard, you being new, but Stellar Bay hardly ever gets off-road traffic. Us being cut off by the board and all. Which means I never get to do this part, but I've been practicing, so here goes.
What?
On behalf of Monarch Stellar Industries, welcome to Stellar Bay, home of the freshest sal tuna and halcyon. Please state your name for the records.
I'm Captain Richard B.
Swell. There's one for the logs. I'm even gonna give you your own entry code. I'm not supposed to do that. It's against procedure, but Mr. Sanjar isn't so strict about the rules here. Besides, I got a lot of empty entries to fill.
So is Stellar Bay really that isolated?
We don't get ship traffic in town. Only off-worlders who do make it out here are Sublight. They got a base in Fallbrook. And thank the stars for them, or we would have run out of Rizzo's Purple Berry Crunch years ago.
Thank the stars for that. It's just that you're not what I expected to find on Monarch.
Oh, that'll just make Mr. Sanjar's day if you tell him. The board makes up lots of nasty stories about raptidons and cannibals and whatnot. But that's all outside our walls. Mostly.
So you're saying the board's been lying about this place?
Oh, sure. They make Stellar Bay sound like a rotten place, but it's not so bad. Get a good breeze going, and the sulfur smell mostly covers up the fishy smell.
Oh.
Ah, the nostalgic stench of home. Can't say I miss the day-to-day of living in Edgewater.
Anyway, Mr. Sanjar's got lots to say on that subject. Kinda goes over my head, though.
Alright, well, I'm gonna have a look around town.
Mr. Sanjar will be mighty pleased to meet you. If you see him over at headquarters, maybe you could tell him I did a bang-up job of welcoming you? Oh, and if you're headed that way, maybe you could do me a favor?
Well, that depends. What is it?
I got this Rizzo's Rangers Tossball poster coming in on the next Sublight shipment. Signed by the Black Hole himself.
Who?
Only I haven't heard anything in a while. You think you could check with Celia to see if it's come in?
Who is the Black Hole?
That's Bertie Holcomb. Only one of the greatest tossball hackers ever. Everyone's heard of him, even on Monarch. We still get some of the games. You been living in a sulfur pit or something?
But why is he called the Black Hole?
On account of him being the best hacker who ever played. Nothing gets by him. He sucks up every ball that comes his way.
I see. How about maybe word that differently there?
Well, Holcomb's had a lot of nicknames over his career. Used to be the tallywhacker on account of what he'd do to the score. Before that, he was the slick stick, because his shots were always so smooth.
What? You're making this up.
I swear I'm not. At the start of his career, people called him the hack boss, but no one thought that was very catchy.
Well, this poster of yours sounds pretty valuable.
I couldn't really say. I'm just a fan of the game. But the fancy collector types say the more people see these things, the less valuable they are. And I figure my poster's been passed around by more than a few people by now.
Alright, sure. I can ask about your poster.
Thanks a bunch. Celia works for Mr. Sanjar in the MSI building next to the bar. She's always there, so you can't miss her.
Alright.
Well, well. It isn't often we see new folk in Stellar Bay. First drink's on me, stranger.
Sure, thanks.
Enjoy. If you plan on sitting through Nyoka's stories, you might could use a few.
I could use a few and telling them myself.
Now what can I do for you?
So why is this place called the Yacht Club?
But it had a fancy ring to it. Name's the first advertising anyone sees, after all.
Are there any, yachts in Stellar Bay?
Nope. But a man can dream.
So you said you're not used to seeing new faces around here.
Not since Amber Heights. These days we have more leaving than coming. Off to join the Iconoclasts or some such.
What happened at Amber Heights?
Bunch of marauders broke into the executive compound, slaughtered everyone. Corporations pulled out of Monarch not long after. I thought everyone knew. But then that was 10 years ago. Still feels fresh to us every time we look at our walls, though.
And, how well do you know Nyoka here?
Anyone who spends any amount of time in this bar is bound to get to know Nyoka. on account of her being here so often herself. And I don't mean that unkindly. Anyone who's rid us of as many beasts as you have is entitled to a few drinks. Something else I can do for you?
Nah, nothing right now, thanks. Excuse me.
And the little bastard's slippery, right? On account of its blood, so it's sliding. All over the place, trying to crawl away. Getting so I can't tell the blood from the mud.
Excuse me.
Don't interrupt, it's rude.
Oh.
But I gotta get in there. Get right in that baby rap's stomach and dig it out. If so much as a drop of stomach acid got on that medallion, shit, I don't know what I'd do. Might be I'd hunt every damn rapt out there. Right. What are you staring? Wait. You ain't from around here. Who are you?
I'm Richard B. Pleasure to meet you.
Ooh, charmer. Don't get a lot of that around here. Folks mostly grump at me about how I should join the MSI payroll. Nice change of pace. Buy me a drink, will you?
Sure. Another round, bartender.
Outstanding. What are you doing in Stellar Bay, stranger?
I'm told you can help me find an information broker.
Well. Let's get down to brass nuts then, shall we? Brass...
What?
Wait, that ain't it. Brass rats? Let's talk business. I'm headed back out there after I sober up. You want a guide sooner than that? You have to get me something to clear my head.
Oh, I don't need an escort. Just tell me how to get to Devil's Peak.
Oh, you want information for nothing. Very well. I am no match for your your yammering. Here's how to get to Devil's Peak.
Alright.
Go south. Along the road, not the river. Look for the mountain with devil horns. Watch out for raps. And mana swarms. And marauders. Sulfur pits. And you know it'd really be safer if I went with you. You want to reconsider sobering me up?
Fine, I guess. What do you need?
Outstanding! Our dispensary here maintains a stock of, well, I don't rightly know what they are. Steroid or caffeine somethings? Pills. They're
Pills.
very good. I'm cut off for the month, on account of needing one just about every damn day. But I'm sure you've got your wily ways. Fetch me one and we'll be all set.
Are you talking about caffeinoids? That stuff is just a stimulant.
Well, they work. We got a deal or what?
Alright, I'll be back.
New face, huh? You from Offworld?
Yep. Captain Richard B. of the Unreliable.
A ship captain? Well, I'll be. Here, let me buy you a drink. Consider it an MSI welcome. Why don't you grab a chair, sit a spell and revel with us?
What are you, celebrating?
Me and my friends have taken our destiny into our own hands. We're untethered, free of responsibility and worldly cares. Well, as long as we don't run out of bits. But until the windfall's gone, we're riding high. See, we just walked out on our work. Had enough, we did. So now we're striking.
Won't you get in trouble for that?
I don't see how. When Sanjar took over MSI, he tossed all the old corporate rules. We ain't required no more to work whatever job the company demands. Our supervisor, Velma, goes on and on about quarterly profits and meeting quotas. But that ain't what Sanjar promised us. Velma refuses to negotiate, so we're refusing to work. We won't go back until she agrees to pay us fair and proper. Us on Monarch, we're free from the board, you know? We have the right to lobby for better hours and pay.
Well, you know, I just happen to be pretty good with negotiations.
I wouldn't doubt it. You look like the type who tends to come out on top. Not like us cogs, trying to be the squeaky wheel but just getting deadlocked. It's been days, but Velma won't even hear us out. Maybe you could just make her listen to our demands.
Sure, I'll mediate on your behalf.
You would do that? We sure are lucky you decided to come up to the patio today. I knew drinking up here would be good for more than the view.
Alright, I'll talk to you later.
Could I get another advance, Mr. Nandi?
Just make sure it's properly logged.
I'll note it next to the others, sir.
Hello.
Well, new business turns up at last. Celia, didn't I tell you our new statistics-based advertising model would be a hit?
That you did, sir.
How can yield improvements of 26.7% not quicken the pulse? How can 32% cost savings not moisten the loins?
You've often posed these very questions.
Clear my schedule. This newcomer has a meeting with me.
Oh, that's very generous of you.
Celia, will you make a note of that for my self-review? Very generous.
Noted.
Yep.
But not so generous I can't drive a good bargain. Now, who sent you? Rizzo's, perhaps? Or Auntie Cleo herself?
And that's not really important. I'm just looking for the information broker.
Hiram? Why, he's probably still out at Devil's Peak. Not that he's had the courtesy to notify me, at any rate. But if you're here for him, I suppose that means you aren't here for Saltuna.
I'm afraid not.
Oh, shame. I'd been saving a bottle of iceberg-aged whiskey for an occasion like this. I had hoped that livening up our advertisements with enticing figures would draw the other corporations back to our bosom, but it seems we're back to the drawing board.
Wait, if you're free of the other corporations, why would you want to bring them back?
Surviving alone isn't as easy as it looks. Thanks to the so-called hazard clause, Monarch has been cut off from the board's resources and protection for 10 years now. Now, we've kept ourselves in business by trading with individual corporations, but given the off-the-books nature of those transactions, such arrangements are precarious.
And so you're tired of scrounging and scraping by, is that it?
Yes, freedom is a tempting ideal, but a rather costly paramour.
Exactly. Intellectualism fuels the train to mankind's future, but the tracks the train runs on are forged from practicality.
What?
Yeah.
Yes, it's as though the good vicar has plucked the very words from my brain.
So what do you mean to do about it?
Well, Mr. Nandi here has a rather ingenious plan to get MSI restored to the board.
On our terms, mind you.
Returning to the board is your only chance if you hope to survive here on Monarch. That doesn't mean it'll be easily achievable.
Indeed not. No worthwhile plan was ever simple. That's what I always say.
And if our advertising scheme hasn't borne fruit, then perhaps it's time we took matters into our own hands.
Alright, so enough preamble. What's the plan?
It's a two-pronged approach. The first part involves seeing Stellar Bay properly defended.
How long did it take you to figure out that you needed to defend your city?
Not long, but the devil is always in the details. And the salient detail here is a Bolt 52 cartridge. If you can get us what we need to rejoin the board, starting the Bolt 52, we'll be able to become one of the most productive and secure cities in Halcyon.
And you'll have a powerful ally on the board.
What's a Bolt 52?
Why, one of the strongest defenses in Halcyon. An extremely powerful ordnance.
Never realized fighting the bureaucracy could be this interesting.
It is quite the rush.
Alright. And once you have this Bolt 52 thing, well, what's the other part of your plan?
I'll need to gather some supplemental materials, but I mustn't get ahead of myself.
You do tend to do that.
The Bolt 52 will be in the old arms building southwest of town, which used to be part of Stellar Bay before we had to move our walls in. And these days, it's overrun with marauders and raptidons.
Alright, I'll see what I can find.
So taciturn, so dour. I'll be waiting with bated breath. Oh, and while you're at it, there should be a terminal in the arms building with some dangerous information. Perhaps you could delete it so it doesn't fall into the wrong hands.
Sure. But before I go, I need to ask you something.
What can I do for you?
I met Grim, the landing pad guard.
I see. And was his delivery of the MSI authorized greeting up to snuff?
Yep, he did a bang-up job.
Well, that's excellent. I'll see that your feedback makes it into his review. What else can I do for you?
I have some questions about MSI and the good old days.
Then it's good that I keep such meticulous notes.
So, how did MSI get kicked off the board in the first place?
I've asked myself the same thing many times, especially seeing as the legal mechanisms we employed were part of the board's own bylaws.
Wait, do you mean that you initiated your own removal from the board?
Not intentionally, though that's technically true. For many years, this planet was home to as many corporations as Terra 2. But back then, it was known as Terra 1.
And what happened to the other corporations?
As you may have noticed, this planet has more than its share of hazards. And as the other corporations began to tally their losses, they decided to pull out.
But not MSI, right?
Our leadership at the time certainly wanted to.
And how did that work out?
Most regard Monarch as a lost cause. But there were others of us who saw an opportunity. The chance to improve working hours and conditions, to reform MSI from the ground up.
Oh, that's quite the forward thinking there.
It's humane, but it's also good business sense. Exhausted, sick, and malnourished workers are not productive workers. Even a cursory review of the data bears that out. Anyway, we learned of a loophole in the corporate bylaws that would allow MSI to claim ownership of the entire planet once the other corporations pulled out, creating the perfect environment for us to enact these new reforms.
And I take it your leadership didn't embrace your ideas.
No, they laughed in our faces and insisted we'd be relocating to Terra 2 along with everyone else.
Yet here you are. Guess you missed the transport.
Many of us chose to stay behind. And as the most senior executive remaining, I ended up in charge of what was left of MSI.
Must have pissed off some real big suits to get stuck with that.
On the contrary, I wrote lots of very important reports on behalf of top MSI officials before I was able to achieve this position. I moved forward with our planned reforms as well as our strategy to assume ownership of the planet. Yet not long after I renamed it Monarch, the other corporations dislodged us from the board and began an official campaign to paint us as lawless savages.
But why would they do that?
I don't know. Everything we did was legal and above board. We followed their rules, and yet they still found reasons to declare us outlaws. I do think there's something useful in a governing body like the board. Something that keeps us from anarchy, but I dearly wish it functioned differently.
And what is the hazard clause?
It's a legal provision that gives the board the authority to cordon off any planet or location that it deems dangerous.
A necessary evil for the greater good of society.
Cordon off.
That's exactly how the board describes it.
Huh. You sound skeptical.
Monarch may be dangerous, but it's hardly the wasteland the board describes it to be. Whatever the board's goals, the greater good has little part in them.
Alright, so why exactly do you want back on the board?
Why wouldn't anyone? They own nearly all the resources and infrastructure in Halcyon.
Without the board, chaos would overtake the system. Working within the established order isn't a principle to snub one's nose at, Captain.
If you can't beat him, might as well join him and reach into their pockets.
To be on the board is to be part of the colonial community, and being cut off means slow strangulation.
Well, they've treated you pretty roughly. Is it worth going back to that?
I'm not a man to put pride before progress. If membership on the board can ease our hardships and provide us with opportunities, then that's the path I mean to pursue. Besides, I'm hopeful that additional leverage on our part will allow us a more equitable relationship.
Leverage.
Don't get ahead of yourself, sir.
Yes, it'll be easier to explain once we have the Bolt 52. My hope is to maintain the reforms we've managed here, and who knows? Perhaps once we're restored, we could spread them to other corporations.
Sure. Let's talk about something else.
What can I do for you?
I've got to go.